Hi friends, welcome to geometry. We are going to be studying geometry and talking about how it's measuring all of the world around us. We use geometry to measure the world around us. Before we get started in diving into those nitty-gritty details, we first have to introduce you to some basic vocabulary. Now, what you're going to find is during this entire course, you are going to be introduced to a ton of terms. So grab a notebook and or even just like a section in your 3-ring binder, something where you can put your vocabulary terms, because there are going to be a lot of them and you are going to want to be able to reference them easily. Okay, so let's start. For our first one, we have a point. A point is a location. It is not measurable. It can be something as tiny as this little A here, and I'll get a little closer so you can see, or it can be as big as this B here or bigger even. It's not measurable at all, but we do write it as point A like this or point A. Okay, so a line is made up of points. And now a line has no beginning, no end. It goes on forever, also not measurable. So when we write our lines, it looks like this, and we can name lines two different ways. We can say, name 2 points on that line, or we can name the line based on the scripted letter that is usually written at the end of it. So you could say line M or line AB using the notation like this with those arrows above it. Okay, and so yes, and on that one, it's not measurable because, like I said, it goes on forever in either direction. For a segment, this is part of a line with 2 endpoints. This is totally measurable. You can grab a ruler and measure a line segment because it has one place that stops and another place that stops. How we write that is AB, just like this, with that little notation of a line above it. Okay, array is another good one, and this is a line with one endpoint that extends indefinitely, so it's not measurable. Imagine standing on Earth and shooting a laser pointer out into space. It would go on forever and ever and ever because there is no end. It does, however, have one endpoint, and that would be you standing on Earth. So we write that as MN. Whoops, there we go, MN with the arrow. Now you got to be really careful. You don't want to write this as NM like this. You need to be very mindful of your letters. This would not be considered correct. You want to make sure your endpoint matches your endpoint when you're writing it. Okay, a plane is a flat surface made up of at least 3 points. It's not measurable. We'll get into more detail on that, but for right now, you can see that here's an example of a plane. You can write it as plane P, and again, there's that script up letter there that describes the plane, or you can say plane and then list 3 points, in this case, A, B, C, but it has to be at least 3. If you have just 2, that's a line. Okay, so let's take a look at our other ones. We've got a couple of other words that we'll go dive into a little bit deeper later on. But for right now, we have collinear. That means that they're on the same line. Think about if you have like a co-pilot, right? You have a pilot and a co-pilot. They're in the same plane. So the collinear means that they're on the same line. Non-collinear, not on the same line. So if you take a look at this example here, A, B, and C, those would be considered collinear because they're all on the same line. D would be considered non-collinear to A or B or C. Okay, coplanar, same idea. They're on the same plane. So non-coplanar, of course, would be not on the same plane. So imagine that we have this figure here, and we have A, B, C. That's this plane right here. This plane, this point D, would be non-coplanar because it's not on the same plane as A, B, and C. Okay, finally, another good vocab word is midpoint. What this does is cut a segment into 2 equal halves. So if we have M is the midpoint of AB, that means we have 2 equal halves here. AM is going to be the same as MB. All right, so welcome to the wonderful world of geometry. Hopefully this vocabulary gets you started, and we'll dive in a little bit deeper as we get into some more subjects.